Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I don't know if you recall this specific card and the video that was accompanying it, but I said then that originally I had another idea and today I am finally sharing that idea. Now the thing that went wrong with my first attempt to get this card going on was that I didn't use any spray adhesive like a pixie spray on the back of my stencil, which made my stencil a bit, well, flimsy when adding it to my panel, and so it went all directions. The lines weren't neat, they were a bit blurry, and so I decided to ink blend in between the lines as well to get a gradient and to not see all those things. Now this time around I sprayed the stencil with some pixie spray. It's a temporarily adhesive. You spray it on your stencil, you wait a few minutes, and then you can get this stencil on top of your card base, and it is definitely stuck on there. Now I always spray on top of a box whenever I'm spraying with pixie spray, just in case. So you might recall this color scheme. I really loved it. It was with the intention of having some fresh apples kind of colors, and although I'm only going to use one color for the apples from the images, I thought of several colors like the green apples, and then I needed a bit of bluish green to finish off my color palette here. And that's actually how I came to this combination. It's really fresh, it's bright, it's a lot of fun. The stencil that I'm using here, again, it's the Skinny Stripes stencil from Fawn, which is really fun, but I do recommend something to get it sticky on your panel. I'm also using some post-it tape just because I wanted to have these lines to be really all green, all red, all those things. So I masked off the lines next to it, except here for that one line where I really wanted to have a mix in between the cracked pistachio and twisted citron. So I'm just moving up through my panel. I'm not going to create a background for the whole panel again. I'm going to really emphasize on this one area of my panel, which will be on the top of the card. You can definitely turn this around or turn this around or put it horizontally and then play a bit with some big bold letters or anything like that. There are many ways of using this stencil, and in this stencil set there are actually two. There is also one with diagonal stripes, which is also really pretty. So I'm finally onto my last color here, just ink blending my way. Also, just to be sure, I'm really holding that stencil still. It is sticky, however, so that really helped me. I got some really crisp lines. That's how I wanted it to look from the first time as well, but that just didn't end up as I wanted it to. So in a minute I will just peel off that stencil and the purple tape, and you will see this gorgeous area on the panel. If you don't like coloring critters, this is definitely a background that can be used for, well, a card without critters. I think that could be a lot of fun as well. So I'm just really gently peeling off the stencil. I'm going to wash it off, and actually the stickiness from the pixie spray will still be on there in the bag. So next time I'm using this stencil, I will still have a bit of help from that pixie spray. I can also spray it again if needed, but most of the time I can use it 2-3 times if I want to. And then this is the background where I was going for originally as well. So I'm really glad that I actually, while doing the voiceover last time with the other card, promised to still try and create this card that I had in mind. Now next up is all about figuring out how I was going to incorporate these images, because we have only a limited area where we are going to really draw the attention towards. And I really wanted to showcase as much images as possible, although it is, just because of the area, kind of a clean and simple card. Now, as you can see me lay down these images, there are so many ways to add these on top of this panel. Also, if you just have like a really soft ink blended gradient on the top or bottom of your card, you can play again with placement. I don't know if you saw the autumn thank you cards that I created with some of my favorite things products. That's definitely another way to also create like a part of your panel there to create a background on top without using a stencil. You don't always need to use stencil for a specific area or a specific highlight on your card. Now, once I sort of figured out which images I was going to place where and such, I stamped them out using some dark chocolate ink. This one is from Gina K Designs Amalgam ink. I really love it. It is definitely dark enough, but at the same time it's softer than black. So I just went for that. For the colors here, I'm going for some really bright colors. I had so much fun coloring these images. I have some bright greens, bright reds, some blue, some browns, really simple. Also, all combinations are listed on my blog post in case you want to have a reference or you want to use one of the combinations in a next project. As for the coloring, I am working my way through my marker combinations from darkest to lightest. That's the way that I prefer working. But there are many ways, of course, to color. You can color any order you like. As long as you're having fun, you like the end result, I think that's all that matters. We all have our own style a little bit, and this is just a suggestion. Just keep in mind that whenever you're using combinations that other people like showed or indicated on blogs or anything like that, that depending on how you color and maybe you color in another order, it might end up a tiny bit different, not hugely, depends of course of how you're coloring or how many markers, anything like that. But just keep that in mind, that it might end up a slight bit different to what the other person is showcasing on a picture or anything like that. So coloring for darkest to lightest, also I'm trying to keep all of my shadows on the right side. Of course, later on I am going to mess that up with that other mouse here. I forgot about it because I'm so used of changing the shadows depending on how they are facing that I did that, but I fixed it with my colorless blender. That's for later. But yeah, the browns here, I try to keep it as simple as possible, as I said, not doing too many markers. But I did, however, do a softer basket and rather than the tree itself for this card, just to give it a bit something. There are overlapping markers, of course, always. I cannot emphasize it enough that is really a way to enlarge your collection without immediately paying like ridiculous prices because of well, just pricing of Copic is quite expensive, but I'm building up my markers as I go. I'm trying to first buy markers that already can be in addition to the current combinations that I have. That's always a great way to think, to build it up. It's also how you can save a bit up and just buy what you more or less need because, well, we need everything and at the same time we don't need it, but we want it. So I never am embarrassed by the fact that I can be an alibi for someone. So if you see like a combination that you really like and you don't have one or two or a few markers of it, I will be your alibi. You need that combination that you saw. It's just necessary. So that being said, go to your spouse and just get those few markers that you really need, you know. Okay, so here for the tree, to to give it a bit more. It's also quite a large image, so I wanted to do something more with it. I elongated a bit the lines of the tree so that it would have a tiny bit more of a dimension with shadows, a bit, well, a bit more structure maybe. And I just did that by elongating. As you can see, I'm following those lines already drawn with my darker markers, and then I'm blending it out as always with my lighter ones. So I'm doing that most of the time. I also need 2 layers in case you have never seen my videos. I most of the time add 2 layers to get that blend that I want, sometimes even more. And the paper that I'm using is Transotype Perfect Coloring Paper, which is a great paper for markers. So yeah. Here onto the apples, well, I think it's sort of clear that what I was doing, so I'm trying here to save a bit of time by not showing you every single apple that I'm coloring, but I'm just making sure that I'm following my previous marker with the second one, then the third one, and then we will add a second layer as well. So for the mice now, I'm going to give them the same combination. It will be E37, E33 and the E53. But as you can see here on that second one, I definitely, well, forgot about my plan for the shadowing. So I had to get rid or just soften that darkest marker a bit more that I just added, using my colorless blender for that, and I'm just letting it set a bit. I can go over it again with my colorless blender. Anything is possible. I could also have started again with the mouse, stamped it out again, but I ended up not doing that, just went for it. And we're building that one up as well. So for me this is a bit, but it's a bit strange to color this way, to have shadows right in the face. Normally I have it in the back and then a really bright face, but everything was on the right side, so I just went for it, and I like it in the end, but it's also logical that I went the reverse way in the beginning. So once everything was colored in, I could take the matching dies and die cut all of the images. I'm using some purple tape to keep the dies in place when I'm rolling it through my die cutting machine. And then we can look at our panel again, stamp our sentiment out. I decided to just stamp it out with the same dark chocolate ink and a bit wonky on top of my lines, just because of those apples and placement that I figured out earlier. I thought it was a nice idea. Now for the tree, I'm using some liquid glue and I'm going to let this tree hang off of my card. I will trim off the excess later on, and then I actually didn't intend to, but I ended up using one of the parts that I cut off on the other corner of my card. It's something that you can always do to stretch whatever you colored in. If you trim things off and they are quite neutral, well, neutral in a way that you don't see that it is trimmed off necessarily, then you can reuse it actually on another corner maybe, or on an edge. So that I will do later on. I'm using some thin foam squares to help me get a bit of dimension going on my card whenever I need to. For example, for this leather, I am just cutting the foam square smaller so that I can fit it behind and then have that with some dimension as well. Also, something that can be handy here if you don't want to fiddle with it is to die cut this image a few times more and just put one on top of the other so that you can create some height with that. So here I'm just positioning it, the leather, and then I can add that mouse on top. Don't forget that the leather is already a bit higher up, so you need to take that into account whenever you're adding new adhesive to something that is going to go on top. So I avoided the feet. And then just this apple. And actually, originally, I thought leaving it like this, but you will see. Once I trimmed off that tree, I had another possibility. Also, from time to time, there can be a bit of stickiness from the pixie spray. I just lost it. From the pixie spray, it can be a bit stuck on top of your panel. You can always erase it with an adhesive eraser. So here, as I said, a bit of a neutral kind of element. I didn't want to have an apple on that corner, so I just had those leaves, and those leaves can come from another tree that is just aside, you know. Now I'm adhering this panel on top of a card base, and then this card is finished. You can add glossy accents, stickles, embellishments if you want to. For me, this card already had quite enough going on with the colors, with all of the apples. This is actually the card that I had in mind when I started the first time around. So I'm really glad that I tried it, that I can share it today with you. I hope that I could inspire you, that you like the end result. I want to thank you all for stopping by and taking the time to watch this video, and I'll be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!